All right, the chairman has showed up. We're ready to start the meeting.
It took some work, but I got there. All right, do we have a quorum here this evening?
Yes, you do.
Who am I missing? I only
Missing
see-
Russell Moto. Russell Moto isn't on.
How come I only see Mike?
Yeah, Mike Richard, Mike Baptiste,
is here, Mike
Mike
King.
King.
Richard with us too?
Yes, Richard is here too.
I'm here, George.
Yeah, I'm just having trouble finding everybody, that's all. All right then, I will call the meeting to order at 6:05. If anyone's recording, would they make it known? I see Chloe's here. Guess that's it. All right. Ken, let's you give me a heads up on the agenda. I don't have it printed in front of me.
All right. Continued public hearings. 8-20, site plan review, Borrego Solar Systems, care of Beals and Thomas, 140 Tyhonet Road.
I was beginning to think they left town. All right then. What have you to share with us this evening?
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for having us back. Would you like me to share my screen to have the plan up while we discuss?
Sure.
So. All right, so you should see the site plan, just if there are questions as we go along. Thanks again for having us back. I'm Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas. Zach Farkas with Borrego Solar is also here. Since we last met with you, we've gone a few rounds of review with Mr. Rowley, our peer reviewer. So in mid-January, we had submitted plans and a stormwater report, decommissioning info, which updated the original submission plans to the best of our ability based on the feedback we had received on the 27 Charge Pond and the 150 to Hunnit Road projects. So Mr. Rowley then undertook a comprehensive review of that plan set, issued comments. We provided responses and revised materials in early February, issued a supplemental set and have been coordinating with Mr. Rowley since then. We've issued the final set that he's reviewed, addressing his final comments, and he's recommended approval with conditions in his latest letter. So I think we've satisfied all of the technical comments that had been raised. Some of those, I'm happy to go through some of the changes that were made, but the majority from earlier on were, stormwater related, layout related, nothing too significant. We moved in this latest round some panels outside of a basin, for example, and undertook some other minor revisions. So the board has the final set, and with that, we think that we're ready to close. It's our expectation that we're ready to close, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Stacy, this is Richard Swenson. I have one question. In Charlie Rowley's latest note that he sent out, he estimated that there were 2 million yards of sand to be moved on this site. Would your engineering team concur with that value?
Yeah, that's roughly about right. When we had estimated it earlier, based on the original plans, it was 1.6 million and change. So this is the site that is being prepped ahead of the solar in association with 80 Make Pieces operations, where we'd discussed with the planning board previously that they're coordinating with their engineer regarding earth removal permitting for that work. So that's the grading that's on the plans.
I have no further questions. George, I would like to make a comment at some point after other questions are addressed.
Sure. I had the impression that the earth removal was going to take place on the northerly, was it 150 Tyhonet site?
No, it's this southerly one, 140 Tohonet.
Okay, which is. Oops. Let me see. Switch to the paper plans.
George, this is Charlie, if I can interject. On 150 Tyhonet, they were basically keeping to the grades the way they exist today. There was no plan, at least a part of that application, to cut that site down the way that they're talking about here.
Okay, so I just have the addresses confused.
I had a question.
What's that, Ken?
In the draft decision, there's a number for, that was put in for dollars for decommissioning. But I understood from Charlie's letter that that may not be the current number, or it hasn't been reviewed as yet. Is that the case, or has a number been confirmed for decommissioning?
So for the decommissioning, we had included in our, I think it was early February or mid-February letter to the board, a proposed value based on the metrics from the other sites, based on the kind of square footage per megawatt approach. Charlie asked for documentation of that, and so we submitted the decommissioning estimate that supports that number with the material.
Has it been reviewed?
I didn't catch that.
Has the number that's in the documentation been reviewed?
I don't know if Charlie has reviewed it since we issued it on Friday.
I would just clarify. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead. If you would, Mr. Chairman, it was my expectation the last time we were before the board, we had talked about the number. So I would answer Ken's question as saying the total number, that number just south of $600,000 was reviewed, but the line items building up to that number were not reviewed because we just provided those to Charlie on Friday, I believe. So I assume no time was taken yet to review those, but that number came directly from the number we agreed on for the northerly site. If you recall, we spoke for some time during that final meeting. And so what we did is we took the per acre number and assigned it pro rata to this project.
I don't believe the actual number was decided upon. In my letter of the 25th of January, I said that on a separate note, the letter from B&T dated January 21st indicates that a complete cost estimate for decommissioning would be done after the dollar amount was approved. And in my letter, I said I recommended that the cost breakdown be provided for approval prior to acceptance of the total amount indicated above, which was $598,580. I think that's the way it was left. I don't think it was discussed at the last hearing. So it's up to the board. I have not had a chance to read the latest submittal, which I got from Sonia today. So I don't know what those numbers are, whether it's the same total number, whether things have been modified or not. I had some concerns over it, as you probably know.
So the number that was included in the January 19th letter, that 598,580, was what Zach has referenced is based on the northerly site prorated. And then we submitted the decommissioning line items in response to Charlie's comment regarding providing the detail at this point.
Mr. Chairman, if there are questions regarding the decommissioning value, it's a long way off till the decommissioning occurs. In other projects, we've allowed that the decommissioning number gets calculated during the time of construction and provided before the facility is operational. Is another option.
If I could ask a question, Ken or George?
Yes, please.
So I'm looking at the decommissioning document that looks like it was submitted today. It's dated 3/8 on the documents on the town website. And in the first section, it says there's going to be 47,544 modules that are going to be decommissioned. And the line item breaks that down at $19,800, which is roughly 41 cents a module. Do those modules have any recycling value to them? Because I can't imagine any contract is going to work for 41 cents a panel.
They do have value. We're not allowed to take credit, if that's the right word, for that value. So any potential recycling value of the aluminum, the copper, the steel is not contributing in a net factor to this number.
So you're not allowed to disclose to us what a typical module is worth in today's scrap value?
No, the other way. I can't take credit for it, meaning
Well,
if we've got 6, okay.
I understand that you can't take credit for it, but it would be easier for me to understand someone working for 41 cents a panel if I knew that that panel was worth $25 at the scrapyard in New Bedford, just outside of Providence.
Yeah.
So do you know what the current scrap value of a panel is? Or
I don't know that number. We have not decommissioned any projects yet. Obviously, these projects are 20 to 40 year lifetimes. So we're in the early, maybe late single digits for most of the projects across the Commonwealth. So I don't know that number exactly.
Okay, so then how did you arrive at $19,810?
Zach, this is Dean Smith from Borrego. If you can hear me, the time that it takes to disassemble the racks is based on our direct experience with assembling them. So we used the same time frames for disassembly that it took to assemble the racks in the first instance. So that's where that cost comes out. And it's just simply based on the time that we know it takes to assemble the rack. So we're reversing the process and using an equivalent amount of effort to take them apart.
Okay, but you're still, again, you're going to find it hard pressed to convince me that someone's willing to have you pay them 41 cents a piece to pull those racks down. It's just not realistic. But yet you can't tell me what the current scrap value of that panel is.
Text message Shelley.
You know, again, if that panel was worth $25 on today's market, and there's 47,000 of them, then the $19,000 starts to make sense, because now you're talking real money at the scrapyard. But you're not able to tell us what that number is, and we're to take it on faith that there's a contractor that's willing to go in there and undo all those panels for 19 grand. And I don't see it.
I think what Dean's saying is we know with absolute certainty that a contractor is willing to construct the project for that 20 cents per panel. So we know that for sure, and certainly disassembly is a lot easier than assembly. So the logic argument is simply it costs about the same to take it off as it does to put it on. And I think, Dean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the same logic we've used for the 6-10 projects that this board has already approved.
Yeah, it's the same logic we've used in all of our decommissioning estimates. And a contractor wouldn't be coming in just to disassemble and take the modules. They would be disassembling the racking material and doing other operations. It would be probably a lump sum contract for a lot of different facets of the decommissioning. So they wouldn't have to depend on that one item to represent the profit they would would make from this. And there are definitely salvageable materials in the racking. There are metals that can be salvaged and whatnot. But we don't include those costs. But on a project of this size, the salvage costs that we would normally estimate would probably be closing in on $100,000 for a project of this size. There's substantial salvage costs there.
And are you also making a decommissioning commitment to the landowner?
No, we don't have that in our leases with the landowner. I think I would, without speaking for the landowner, but they certainly depend on the bylaws in the town, and the bylaws require us to have this. And Wareham, I think more conservatively than any town, also has that language that allows for a true up, every 5 years. So it's a good surety to make sure the amount of money is accurate as projects. And so certainly you can imagine 15, 20 years down the road, there'll be a lot more projects that have been decommissioned. There'll be a lot more contractors willing to price things out, and there'll be a lot more known about the decommissioning efforts and the costs that Mr. King are referring to. So the town does have that safety net of being able to true this up 3, 4, maybe even more than that times during the operation period of the project.
Then does that estimate adjust for the increased cost the town would have if they had to decommission?
Well, if you see the logic to it,
Private entity. As
Yeah,
opposed
if
to
you
a
see-
private entity doing it, I would think the municipal cost would be higher.
yeah. So what we do is, in order to account for some of those factors as well as inflation, if you look at page 6 of the decommissioning estimate, the actual subtotal is just a little over $355,000. So what we've done is we've escalated that number at 1.5% per year. And so that puts us in the $600,000 range. And so based on the statute, it's supposed to be a 25% increase. So normally we'd take it to $444,000. But in this case, we're just really trying to be conservative. I think between Dean, Stacy, and I, we really beat this to death on previous projects. So we tried to keep the exact same logic for the projects that were approved just a few weeks ago, maybe even a few months ago now, and carried over to this project. So that's where we basically computed to that $600,000 number and then backward solved to make sure all the logic was sound from what was essentially pre-reviewed for previous projects.
And if I might, sorry, to fully answer Mr. King's question, our spreadsheet, we have a salvage value that's in there. I opened it up while we were talking, and the salvage value for the fencing, racking, and the ground screw foundations is $100,302.10.
And that's in the paperwork for the decommissioning? I didn't see.
It's not included because we can't, we don't get credit for any salvage values. That would reduce the overall decommissioning costs.
But
So that,
it would have been nice that it is noted. We could take it into account when we're trying to figure out how you're arriving at the numbers. It doesn't have.
Well, I think the bylaw in Wareham specifically does not allow us to use that number. That's the reason it's not put in there. But I understand your point. Thank you, Dean, for providing that.
and honestly, the decommissioning estimate is there to establish an amount that's held in escrow or held in abeyance as a surety to the town. So the reduction in that cost for those salvage values, it just means that there would be a larger amount that's guaranteed if the town were to need to step in and decommission for any reason.
Judge, I have a question for Ken, if I could.
Sure.
Ken, has the security document and everything been approved for 150 Tyonet Road?
I believe it was included in the decision.
So it was approved by town council and it's all set to go?
I don't think it's been approved by town council.
Does that need to be done before it's
Before it's signed, yes.
minimized, so to speak?
Before the selectmen accept the bond. Has to be approved by town council.
Well,
We
if
generally do
the
that.
language is the same for this one, which is being proposed. How soon before you think that might come forward so that the board would have an opportunity to know that the language is okay?
We have 4 in place right now for the Charlotte Furnace Road, 77 Farm to Market, 299 Farm to Market, and 160 Tohonet Road projects that are currently under construction. So generally, we just don't post the bond until construction starts or is imminent to start. And so because we're about a year away from construction on these new projects, we wouldn't provide that language. But it's a template decommissioning bond that we've used all across the Commonwealth, and as I said, are using currently for 4 projects in Wareham.
I don't know if it's, Ken, if it's a detail that needs to be addressed, but on their decommissioning breakdown, they've got some typos on the addresses. Some of the pages say 140 Tohonet, other pages say 160 Tohonet.
Yeah, it's certainly a typo. Sorry about that, Mr. King. We can correct that quite easily. Sometimes converting our spreadsheet to a PDF, it just gets a little funky, but I can assure you all these line items are for the 140 Tohonet project that's being discussed right now.
Yeah, they all say 160 Tohonet Road, except for the first sheet.
Right.
I apologize for that, Mr. King. There's a second page header that carries through the rest of the document that wasn't changed.
Yep. No,
So-
I figured if we're cleaning things up, we might as well deal with that while we see it. So
So we can do that right now.
I just want to make sure I understand completely. So 20 years from now, the bond's going to be worth $600,000.
I wouldn't even put it that way. I'd say the day after the building permit is issued, the bond will be worth $600,000, and every day thereafter until the project is decommissioned. Or should we default on our obligation to decommission, that will remain there to be called by the town.
So and you're using a 1.5 inflation rate for your calculation.
We used, I'd say past tense, we used the 1.5% to escalate the $355,000 present value out 20 years, just so there would never be any question. And then, as Dean said, we didn't count the $100,000 or so of potential salvage value.
Right.
So all of that is an attempt to overestimate, to be really conservative, to make sure that when, or I should say, if this decommissioning bond ever needed to be called, the town could hire a contractor, pay that firm $600,000 to decommission the project.
Right, but you do have to back out $90,000 because there is no scrap value in receiving disturbed area. So you really, I don't know.
All right, I didn't follow that comment. Can you say that one more time about the $90,000?
Well, in your summary of decommissioning, you're telling us that there's $100,000 worth of, or roughly $100,000 worth of scrap value in what's being taken down, to help us understand why somebody would work for so little money. But out of that $598,000 figure, there's an $89,812 for seeding disturbed areas, and that obviously has no scrap value.
No, I don't think you're following. Let me try to say it one more time. there are out in that field, there will be approximately $100,000 of scrap value.
Yes, I
Period.
understand that. So,
Okay.
but you're telling us 598, 580, that's
Yep.
what bond will be worth, and that's what somebody's
Yep.
willing to decommission that project for, based on your.
That's right. That's right. And that's the exact same ratio as has been approved in the past couple months by this board.
And if I may, just to clarify as well, so that 598, 580 is what someone will decommission it for, or more than what someone will decommission it for, without even considering the scrap value. The scrap value is just not even at play for this decommissioning, since it can't be used as part of the value.
Well, I mean, I have my doubts. I can't, if I was running a company, I certainly wouldn't put a crew out there for 12 bucks a panel. But that's just my own.
You're putting it. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody that would bid the decommissioning would include the value of the scrap in the calculation, more than likely, but it's not.
Well, yeah, but it's not gonna raise the 598 because there's no scrap value to the seating. So it's gonna stay at 598.
But he could bid 598 plus the salvage value, so he could pick up, it would be then 798.
698.
Right now, it could be 7 scraps up.
Yeah. 20 years from now, who knows?
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, somebody has some background conversation going on, and it's bothering the listeners.
It sounds like a TV's on or something.
These are challenging times, and this pandemic has been just
Mm.
like a natural disaster that we would have with a flood or and people are needing emergency medical services, and unlike a flood or an earthquake, it is still continuing as many. And we are expending money and resources to be able to take care of our people, and right now we have put up a mass vaccination center. Is hoping to save lives by getting this vaccination done.
Looks like everybody's muted except for the board and engineers, so. Somebody's got the TV on. Their dog barked earlier too. There has been a lot of interest. Has anyone submitted any comments, Ken?
Yes, comments were submitted. They were posted on the board's website. Thank you, Dean. Stacy, did you stop your share?
I did, I can start it again.
You can stop it.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm going over the paper plans. If there's a board member with a question or comment.
I had a comment. George, I'll make it now. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate the work, the cooperation that Borrego has shown on these projects with us. They've been very responsive to a lot of almost all the comments, if not every comment that we've made. They work closely with our consulting town engineer and adjusted their designs based on his recommendations almost at the same level. So I appreciate that. That being said, it is unfortunate that our town bylaws allow solar projects of this size with this much clear cutting going on to occur. Those are rules that we play by, and this developer has played by them well. And there'll be solar farms that bring a lot of revenue into the town because of it. But as many of you know, there's been efforts lately to try to tighten our solar bylaws to reduce the sizes and reduce the amount of clear cutting. But unfortunately, those changes were not accepted by the Board of Selectmen to be on the Springtown warrant, and that's very unfortunate. So all that being said, this is something that I will vote to approve because it does follow the rules of our town that our citizens have put in place. And I will continue to try to advocate for better solar bylaws to limit the scope and size of solar farms in the future. So, thank you.
If there's something, while I'm thinking of it, Richard, if there's something you'd like to add, we could examine the surety aspect of this. I think it's going to be difficult to execute if it's ever needed to be exercised. So we can talk about that later.
Hey, George, a little comment. Now, decommissioning, they're going to reseed it in this net. Are they going to bring the soil back? We're talking 2 million yards of sand, earth removal. That's major.
I was just looking at that. How much of that is going to be cut and fill? Because it seems like you.
George, that's an estimate that I made based on looking at the existing elevations and what the ending elevations would be as they are shown on the Beals and Thomas plan, and just taking a very rough estimate of a 20-foot difference in elevation overall times the square footage of the site. That's how that number came out. As a matter of fact, in my initial letter, it was more than 2 million, but to just round it off, 2 million is close enough for discussion. Again, it's part of an earth removal permit that would have to be approved, I think, in this particular case to have this whole thing take place. So it really can't be done the way that it's shown without that permit being executed. And I don't think there would be any reason to ask them to put the soil back if it's subject to an earth removal permit by someone else.
That's right. Just to be clear, there's no intent to replace the sand and gravel that's used by the landowner. The intent is to remove the panels, remove the racking, remove all the equipment, and restore any part of the site that was beat up, destroyed during the decommissioning process. That's where the reseeding comes back in.
If I may, George, back to decommissioning. How did you arrive at using 1.5% for inflation?
That's just a standard we've used across the Commonwealth and in the town. As I said, there's two different ways to do this. You can take your base price, the $355,000 number, and increase it by no more than 25%, or I should say 125%. And then there's increasing it by 1.5% per year. And as you can see by the math, the 1.5% per year is a much greater increase than the 25% increase as the buffer. And so we're just trying to be as conservative as we possibly can here. $600,000 is a big number when it comes to these decommissioning.
I just, for what it's worth, I just went on the website for the International Monetary Fund, and the proposed rate of inflation over the next 20 years is 2.24%, which would raise, just using a calculator, which would raise the number that really should be at the bottom line of that from 598 to 691, 580.
I'm trying to be conservative here. I
Yeah, but
am
you're
doing
being
my best
conservative.
to estimate.
You're being conservative.
I'm doing
in the
my
wrong
best
direction.
to estimate. Sorry, go ahead.
You're being conservative in the wrong direction, but in the best interest of the town.
If the number is $600,000 right now, and again, you've got those true ups every 5 years. So if there was a major inflation event 10 years from now, that would certainly be taken into account. The town is completely protected. If this board would feel better, instead of writing $600,000, if you'd like to write $700,000 right now, I'm happy to approve that number. I know it's going to get changed and reassessed. I want the board to be conservative, to feel protected by this $600,000 number. It's by far and away the biggest number I've ever seen on a decommissioning estimate. But if it makes the board more comfortable, like I'm willing to sign up for that.
I don't get me wrong. I'm not looking for ways to beat you up. At the end of the day, 20 years from now, we're the one that's going to be the proud owners of what's left of what you're building.
That's not true. The truth is I am the owner of it, and this bond is only there if I default.
Correct.
And so I recognize you guys need belt and suspenders. You need to be protected, but I think it's misrepresented to say you guys are the ones in charge. It would be a totally different story if by the bylaw, I was allowed to just walk away and leave it there. But that's not the case. I'm required by the bylaw and my lease to decommission this project. And so the function of this bond is to protect the town against a default.
Correct.
And I totally understand that if I'm going to default, you got to make sure enough money's there in the bank.
Correct.
And that's why I say we truly are trying to be as conservative as we can here. If you look at the initial per acre numbers that were submitted with the first projects, they were much, much, much lower. I feel really good about this number. If we want to deflate or negotiate the inflation percentage or the cost of this or the cost of that, I don't know. Nobody knows what these things are going to be. But essentially, if the board feels we're not being conservative enough with the $600,000 number, increase it.
Okay, thank you.
George, can I jump in here for a second with a question on that?
Sure.
It says after 20 years, the number would go to 598. But suppose for some strange reason, this doesn't last 20 years. The town's going to be stuck with the same cost or more if it happens 5 years from now than it would if it lasted the entire 20 years. But taking 1.5% after 5 years isn't going to get you 598 by a long shot.
It's only
going to be
increase it each year
1.5% per year. So how does how does that become equivalent to adding 25% to the base price?
We're just showing our calculations how we came to the 598, 590.
I know what you're doing, but does it make sense?
That number's in there on day one.
I know that.
Increase. Okay.
I'm just asking the question, is the town getting what it thinks it's getting if it goes by the basis of 1.5% inflation per year? Because you will never get to the 598 until you get out 20 years. My question is, suppose something happens in 10. What's the number then?
Charlie, I think if I understood him correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the bond is worth 598, 580 day one. You're not
Correct.
relying on future interest to drive
No.
that number up.
Not at all. I'm
Understood.
simply showing
Okay,
my math.
Understood. I'm hearing him wrong. Yep.
Yep.
I hear what you're saying.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I mean, Ken hit it right on the head. You know, our bylaws are our bylaws. We have to live with them. And, you know, you've been a good steward in the town as far as abiding by the bylaws when you present the projects and working with us. I just want to make sure that we're covered so that worst case scenario, something happens, not that I would ever wish it on anybody, but you do end up defaulting for whatever reason. You know, business is a fickle thing. You never know what 10 years down the road's going to bring. That the town has enough money to cover the cost to remove this thing.
Well, I will open it up to public comment now if there's no more questions from the board at this time.
I'm all set, George. I don't have any more questions.
Yes,
Meg Sheehan has her hand up.
yeah, I see that. Yes, Ms. Sheehan?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to make some comments. We did submit several letters in writing. It appears to us that this is not a straightforward project. We are greatly disturbed that it took until the last minute for Borrego to reveal that there will be 2 million cubic yards of sand and gravel removed from the site. Just as with the other 7 to 10 sites, this project is simply a ruse for Makepeace to extract sand and gravel and then profit from leasing a portion of this property to Borrego. The sand and gravel that will be removed here is worth about $18 million and will take about 2 years to accomplish the level of extraction that's needed. All you need to do is look around town to see what's going on. And you can see that these 7 to 10 sites have completely denuded a globally rare pine barrens habitat. No amount of money can restore that habitat. There is biodiversity here that is found nowhere else on Earth. And the decommissioning fund, if it's truly going to restore the site, should try to do that, which is absolutely impossible. We'd like the board to take a look at some of the projects that are going on around town. People are very disturbed and upset about this. You can look at 160 Tahonet Road, where based on our elevation calculations and topo maps, not unlike what the town engineer just discussed, over a couple of year period prior to putting in that solar project, Makepeace extracted about 3 to 4 million cubic yards of sand and gravel from that site that had some of the highest global biodiversity in the world. And it was a mapped endangered species site. So that was about $36 million worth of sand and gravel taken off of 160 Tahonet. It's our understanding that there was never an earth removal permit, which would have entitled the town to receive about 25 cents per cubic yard, or at least $1 million in earth removal fees from Makepeace. And the claim in the Beals and Thomas application here, as in the other applications for these projects, that this is sand and gravel that's being used on Makepeace's agricultural operations is not supported by any documentation anywhere that we've been able to find in our extensive research. The claims that this is being used on site or being used to build bogs or to sand bogs is simply not credible. The volume of earth that's been taken off these 7 to 10 sites far exceeds anything that Makepeace could use. All you have to do is look at the number of trucks going down local roads and leaving town to see what's really going on here. This is not a clean energy project. There has never been an assessment of the greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon and the methane that's being released from the spores, from the trees that are being cut down, and the soils that are being disturbed and ripped up. This is not a climate-friendly project, and for Beals and Thomas to state in their applications that this is a carbon-free or an emissions-free project is simply inaccurate. This is really something that the town and the planning board, I know you're saying that you're following your bylaw, but first of all, there should be a complete disclosure about all the endangered species that are on the project site. This is something that the planning board has to take into account in exercising its authority. You should be looking at the cumulative impacts of this project on top of the other 7 to 10, which is also something in the bylaw. And there is, at this point, no valid notice of conversion. So
Bylaws are changed all the time.
Borrego Solar has no opportunity to even use this site because it has to redo, or Makepeace has to redo the notice of conversion under Chapter 61. So there are a lot of problems here, and the board should not be rushing into this. And if I could share my screen for a minute, I'd like to present the board with some information. Could I share my screen?
I don't have control of that, but
Yes, you may.
Okay. This is what Wareham looks like today. And I would just ask, is this the legacy that the planning board wants to leave for future generations, for this community and for our region? These projects have globally significant species and a regional impact on our water supply, on our forests, wildlife, and biodiversity. And I think the community deserves complete transparency and accountability with regard to this project, and that any earth removal permit should be in place and thoroughly enforced before this project goes ahead. Thank you.
Kathy and Nancy?
I thank you. Where is the 2.1 million cubic yards of sand and gravel going to end up?
Not in Wareham.
Does anyone have an answer? Where is it going?
And I guess the other question that I would have then is, why is there no sand and gravel permit in place before this came before the planning board. It seems like approving the project without it is letting the horse out of the barn before you lock it, you know, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So. But Mike, I agree. Mike Baptiste, I agree. It's not going to end up in Wareham.
No. Copper sand's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Soft permeable sand is going every place else in New England. And, you know, that's been a problem since for quite a while. It really has. I'm glad there's other people that see the same way that I see it. Yeah. It's just, it really hurts to see that video. That video was definitely moving, I'll tell you. Yeah.
And I agree, but I also see the inconsistencies in what the future is going to bring. You know, everybody's green technology is pushing wall-to-wall solar panels, but you want to do that without damaging what we have. It's not my backyard type thing, I guess. I agree. I'd make it cutting down acres of pine forest to make electricity.
Well, there's other technologies out there now, George. We had a project that was come before us of putting solar panels over the bogs. The Federal Farm Bureau has been working at a sustainable way to keep the farms going. I lost my family farm because this option wasn't available to me 5 years ago. And, you know, people are worrying about covering up the bogs. Like I said, the cranberries still grow and we're not cutting any trees down. We're not digging any soil out. We're not selling our soil away. You know, that's our resources, George. You know, we must well start selling our water to Boston, you know. It's the same thing. What's going to be left?
Well, saying this country's going to run on solar and wind farms is a scam.
Yeah, well,
Sure
Texas
is.
proved that.
We'll end up like Texas and California.
Mhm.
So they rape the land, and when the land's all gone, then they're gonna say, what do we do now, right? I think we got a problem. We really do.
Mhm.
George, if there was a gravel permit in place, what's the rate of reimbursement to the town for the gravel that's removed?
I don't know that.
What did Graziano pay a yard?
25 cents a yard, guys.
45.
That's it.
Even
That's if it's not
25
getting-
cents. That's all the other towns around us get money for sand. You know, the town gets reimbursed. Rochester, Carver, Plymouth, not Wareham. Wareham's free.
Excuse me, George, Mike, the zoning bylaw has been in place for quite a while. Of course, we don't get all the money we're supposed to get because we know that a lot of soil gets removed from Wareham and never gets registered either way. But the bottom line is Graziano would provide us with a quarterly report, just as an example, JC Engineering have it work it and certify it. And it is 25 cents per cubic yard.
25? No,
25. And anybody removing soil on that type of setup is supposed to pay. The town has, I can't go into details, but we have potential of at least 3 lawsuits against people right now that remove soil illegally.
okay. Is there a reason why Wareham is at 25 cents when 61A section 3 says it's 50 cents?
I tried about 4 years ago to change it on the Board of Selectmen to 50 cents. I got voted down.
Thank you.
Meg, did you wish to speak again, or is that?
Yes, I would just like to remark on this sand and gravel extraction strip mining operation that's going on. So those 7 to 10 Borrego solar sites have all been strip mined, and I think the planning board should conduct a thorough investigation into the volume of sand and gravel removed from each of them. This operation extends up into Carver, where they're excavating sand and gravel right now. And the town has no doubt been deprived of millions of dollars in those fees. It is 25 cents a cubic yard. No one is holding Makepeace accountable for this. The trucks are tearing up and down the roads. People are calling me and telling me about trucks going by, 6, 10 trucks an hour, hauling off sand and gravel right under the town's noses. And here we are nickeling and diming about a decommissioning fee and a financial bond and everything, but we're letting Makepeace and Borrego get away with this scam to extract sand and gravel and not even charging them for hauling away the town. I think this is really something that the planning board should look into carefully, and there should be a complete accounting of each of the 7 to 10 sites where sand and gravel has been removed under the guise of so-called site preparation, as it's described by Beals and Thomas, for Makepeace's agricultural operations. We deserve to see where that sand and gravel was used by Makepeace on its agricultural operations before we go ahead and approve another one of these projects. For Beals and Thomas to say in this permit application that 2 million cubic yards of sand and gravel is going to be used by Makepeace on its agricultural operations strains credibility, to say the least. Some might consider it perjury. And furthermore, the cranberry industry, as we hear Makepeace and others complaining, is in trouble. Makepeace is not building any more bogs. Makepeace uses a thin layer of sand on 500 acres of bogs. You can go right on their website and see their video about sanding the bogs. There's no way they are using the millions of cubic yards that have been hauled out of this town over the last 5 years for these projects on their agricultural operations. These people have been calling me and telling me that they're following trucks. Trucks are going to places like Cape Cod Aggregate, going up to Westboro to Reed Sand and Gravel, which is Makepeace's affiliate, as you all may know, operating right under your noses, under the guise of agricultural operations. This sand and gravel is being hauled everywhere. It was never going to be used on Makepeace's bogs, as was represented in all of these 7 to 10 permit applications from Beals and Thomas and Borrego. And I urge you to go back and read those over and see for yourself what this says. I welcome any questions. I've done a lot of research on this.
George, I don't see any more hands. I think it's time that we close the public hearing. Would you entertain a motion to do so?
Charlie, did you, who said they just got a response? Was it you today?
George, I just got the latest summary for decommissioning costs today. That's right. They came in today.
I'm sorry. I had to turn you up. My clock was drowning you out. You just got what, the decommissioning calculation? Is that what
Yeah,
you?
the latest decommissioning calculation I got today.
Yeah, it's dated today.
George, would you entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I would.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Richard, seconded by Mike King. Any discussion? All in favor?
I
Got a roll call vote.
Do a roll call.
You really think that's a good thing to do, George?
What's that?
You really think that's a good thing to do at this time?
What do you anticipate?
Well, there's a lot of questions out there. Isn't our job is to represent the citizens also, plus the town?
You,
This isn't nothing new. This conversation's come up many a times before, and it's always got swept under the carpet. I'm glad I got some support out there now, and they see it the same way everybody else sees it. So let's go with your roll call vote. That's what you want to do, but
well, if you want to have discussion, let's have discussion.
I don't think we should close the public hearing. I still think we got some outstanding issues that are within question, you know?
Well, you say nothing gets done. Is there an action you wish to take?
Yeah, keep the public hearing open.
And
The earth removal is a permit accomplished by the Board of Selectmen and not the planning board. This is probably, if the questions are regarding the earth removal, it's probably best taken up with the Board of Selectmen.
is that something you wish to exercise, Mike?
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to come from a different avenue. Let's move on to what you're doing.
George,
You know,
I think you need to do a roll call vote on that.
I will, yes, but
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this earth removal operation has gone on for decades, as far as I can see, so. I don't know how you at least get compensation or rules to go by. Anyway, I called for a vote, so all in favor, Mike King,
Aye.
Mike Baptiste,
No,
Richard?
Aye.
I keep forgetting we're missing Russell, and I from myself. The earth removal issue, as I see it, is separate. Like I say, that comes under the Board of Selectmen. I don't know what's in litigation and what isn't, so I can't comment on that. And I don't think anybody else will either. Anything further, or you wish to take action at a later date or later this evening? What do you want?
I think we will at a later date, George. That's all we can do, right?
So what, can we make sure that we understand what outstanding issues there are right now before, so that we can at least have a plan to get to finalization on this? I don't know that there are any myself.
Well, I guess given the concern, I think we need to know if this approval would affect anything that's going on legally between the town and the landowner, and how we can, and whether an action by us would influence that one way or the other. I think we could have that answer by next meeting, I would hope.
You get the answer from town council?
I would say that's the route. With some input from the Board of Selectmen, I would hope.
I've got my hand raised if you want, George.
Well, I can't see it.
You need new glasses.
No, for some reason, I can't get this so I can see everything myself.
Alan, there's a yellow tint to your camera right now. Maybe it's your
Well,
shirt.
The shirt is orange, actually. I think it's a yellow light we got in the room here. If George, if you like, I can do this very quickly. I don't like to interfere. The Board of Selectmen last week, the chairman of the board basically made a decision that they were not going to vote on how we were going to exercise our right under 61A for 30 days. We've received a lot of information from a lot of different organizations that say they would like to buy the property. I don't believe we have accurate, or I'll say accurate right now, what the land's worth as it is for someone to go ahead and buy it. Whether the town exercises its right to buy it or they assign it to someone else to buy it, that's at least 30 days away for an answer. As far as anything legally as lawsuits, we cannot discuss that at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's make sure we understand what Alan just said, that they can't discuss any current litigation going on with Makepeace. So George, I'm a little unclear as to what your question is to Attorney Bowen as our town counsel right now. I'm not sure what your question would be. Can you enlighten me on that?
Well, just the fact that we're at this point in the game before an application is made to come out of 61A. The land has been subdivided, and now you have the potential of increasing the value of the property. And now the town is being asked for the right of first refusal. I mean, that seems a little backwards to me. I don't know who keeps track of the scorecard on that, but it seemed like we were behind on looking for it to come out of 61A.
Well, it's my understanding that there's a 120-day window. Does that sound correct? From the
Didn't know
time
it was that long, to be honest.
From the time that the application to rescind the tax status back to its original state. So I guess what you're telling me is the question that we need to get clear is does the planning board by either approving or disapproving a permit for a solar farm on a piece of property that is coming out of chapter 61A, does that planning board action have any potential impact on the 61A litigation that's going on? So that's a fair question. And we should be able to get an answer to that fairly easily, I would think. So let me suggest then that we take the action now to ask for, I don't know, do we have to get permission to go to town council?
Excuse me. As far as I know, I would need the board's vote to do that. That was the last policy that I knew of.
Ken, can you weigh in on that? Is that how we do it? We, as a board, vote to request permission to go to town council?
I think that would be the purest way to do it.
So let me make a motion then that that we authorize George to go to the Board of Selectmen. Is that who we go to, Ken?
No, I'll take it to the town administrator and pass it on to the town council.
Okay, so the motion then is that this board authorize Ken to go to the town administrator to carry forth the question to town council regarding any action that this board may take on the application for 140 Tohonet Road and the ongoing 61A process that's going on.
That your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
George, again, just for information, again, since Richard brought it up, it is 120 days from the time that the town is officially notified of someone wanting to take their land from 61A and moving it back into commercial. But because the governor has a state of emergency right now, a lot of these decisions, which includes this decision, is basically on hold until 90 days after the state of emergency is removed. So it could be 120 days or it could be a year from now. Just so you understand what's going on. Thank you. And I believe also, since the planning board is what we call a legislative committee and not a committee that basically is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but by the town moderator, I believe that and I got in trouble a couple of years ago when I was on the planning board, I guess it's 7 or 8 years ago. The planning board does not really have to have the approval of the Board of Selectmen to go to the town council because they have no authority over the planning board itself as far as actions, because it is what we call a legislative body and not a executive body. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So the motion now is for Ken to go through the town administrator into the office of Mr. Bowen. So
That's the short version, right?
yeah, that's a short.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, one other question, if I may, George.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Charlie, the public hearing is closed.
I know it is. Got nothing to do with the public hearing, other than the fact I wanted to know how much time you have between the close of the public hearing and when you have to actually render your decision in behalf of the town or the applicant, either way. You don't want this to go by default. You want to know how much time you've got. That's the only thing I was asking.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Charlie. I got to be careful about
If you look at the bottom of the agenda, the timeline is printed on that if you have a.
After the close of a public hearing, you have 65 days in which to make a decision on a special permit.
Thanks, Ken.
And that's irrespective of what you may be able to do with town council on the other question.
That was funny. That was funny.
We've got some, is that you, Alan?
No, it wasn't me. I'm not sure who did that. But again, I want to repeat that I looked into this a little bit. I'm not a lawyer, but I checked in with the state. And my understanding is this particular decision can be delayed, until the governor basically removes his state of emergency, and it's 90 days after that happens. So you want to ask Mr. Bowen to get a legal decision, but that was my understanding when I checked with the state about the governor's stay on all different zoning articles. You do right now, basically a lot of articles can be put on hold indefinitely until that state of emergency is done, and then it's 90 days.
Anyway, we had a motion and a second to authorize me to go to seek information from town council regarding the effect of our decision in 61A and 140 Tohonet Road. All in favor? Mike King?
Aye.
Mike Baptiste?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Aye for me. Thank you. What do you got next on the? Oh, you're muted, Ken. Yeah.
Next on the agenda is 2620 site plan review for solar energy installation, BERE LLC, care of Beals and Thomas at 980 North Carver Road.
Is there anyone here for that this evening?
And this is Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas again. My colleague Sarah Stearns is involved in this project, but I believe she submitted a continuance request to, I think it's the board's March 22nd. Is that your next hearing?
That's correct.
Yep. So we look to continue the public hearing for Rocky Maple Solar to March 22nd.
Yes, please.
Wait a minute, I must be muted. Does anybody hear that?
I heard you.
Need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to do, for continuance of the public hearing for site plan review for solar energy installation with Beals and Thomas at 0 North Carver Road, Wareham.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Both of you?
Yep.
Richard?
Aye.
And I. Thank you. Next up, Ken?
Next one is 2-21 site plan review modification, Wareham Retail Management at 1 Seth F. Toby Road.
I think I saw some familiar names on the list here.
I think Lindsay was here. Derek.
I can.
all
Yeah,
right,
Lindsay is, I think Lindsay called in, so I don't know if we can have him lead for us. If not, I can.
I just spoke to him, so he should be somewhere. But I mean, Derek, why don't you get it started while we wait for
Yeah, sure. No problem. So, yep, thank you again for seeing us, Derek Redgate from High Point Engineering. And last 2 weeks ago, we continued the hearing for, this is the building number 3 at the Wareham, at the plaza on Seth Toby Road. We had some discussions on parking, the site plan, and I think tonight it probably makes sense to review some of the material that we submitted since the last public hearing, and that's specifically the architecture and some of the renderings that Bo Wynn in Detroit has put together. So I think if Bo, are you on the phone? If you could maybe share your screen and go through that.
Sure.
This is Lindsay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I was muted. I had to hang up and come all the way back. So not to interrupt what Derek already said. So just as I'm needed or weigh in, now I am on the call. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lindsay.
I believe I'm sharing. Am I sharing? Is everybody seeing a rendering?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for meeting with us this evening. It's an honor and a pleasure to be looking at the last portion of this development. I think the first installation was the Aspen Dental in the center here, and then the Starbucks retail to the south, if you will. And I believe this is the last piece, is the retail area with the Chipotle. So I can just walk you through basically. I have an overall area of the development, and then I have another last slide that really concentrates on this third building. So as you see, we come down to the ground level from the corner viewing in to the Starbucks building, Aspen Dental, and Chipotle on this side. Further into the site of the sidewalk level at the Aspen Dental, Chipotle further on. From the north viewing south, Starbucks, Aspen Dental Chipotle, Walmart in the back. This is along the street looking at the Chipotle facade. Pretty standard materials, brick, storefront, fabric awning, some cantilever awning, and exterior insulation finish system, EFIS, on the upper portion.
Is the rendering consistent with the landscape plan?
Yes, sir. Yep, we dialed it in pretty tight on that. Thank you. Aspen Dental in the middle. One side of the Starbucks retail shop, drive-through view. And then all the same photos, folks, but I'll just give it to you at night. So there's the corner in the evening after a nice shiny rain.
Oh, I thought you were going to seal coat the parking lot for us.
Right. Put some armor all everywhere.
Yeah, there you go.
Another night shot from the north. From the north again. Aspen Dental. Starbucks building. Back at the Starbucks. And then just real quick, I'll just breeze through these. This is mostly just of building number 3, Chipotle, and going around into the parking lot, looking at the drive-through. From the rear of the drive-through, dumpsters screened. Indeed, all the landscape is per the plan. Aerial view from the north. And again, the night shots. Same all the way around. Rear. And at the top. Go back to this one here. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can.
So Bo, thank you very much for coming back with these drawings today. We appreciate that you do it. It makes it much easier for me anyway to visualize what's going on. But I want a clarification. George, you had asked if the landscaping and these pictures were in sync. Is that what you meant by your question?
Yeah, if they're consistent with what's been submitted. I realize the trees are a lot more mature than they would be, but.
Oh, I see.
What's all that desert in the back there, George, behind the trees? Looks awful, looks like a
That's a
desert
glacier.
behind there.
That's a glacier, Mike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so one of the elements of our, our resubmission is, the building location was revised and the site circulation was changed somewhat, but we've also submitted a revised photometrics plan and a revised landscaping plan. From those plans, these are renderings are, but these renderings are, constructed from our, modified site plan set that we're here in front of you. So they should accurately represent both the landscaping and the revised lighting.
In the original approval, we asked that you not construct that parking lot in the back until it was needed. And I think in your previous plan, you didn't have it fully built. This rendition seems to fully build it out. Is that your intention?
So, yeah,
Where
so that
are
is
you
not
referring?
Behind this third building.
Yeah, that is not our intention to yet build that last section of parking that's actually shown in the rendering. So, that would be a potential build out in the future, but not needed under the size of this development. So you're correct, where the pointer is, that double row of parking would remain like a grassed area until
You did have some
potentially
parking
needed.
proposed there. I don't have the plan in front of me, but
It's 27 spaces of potential future, but only if authorized by your board and if needed by the nature of the approved use. So assuming that the remainder of building 3 stays as proposed, which is retail, then the site complies and no further parking would be needed to comply. And in any event, we'd have to come back before the board before those 27 spaces or any portion of them could be built.
Mhm. No, I'm just trying to clarify whether you, I think you showed it partially built on this rendition, right?
Yeah. Derek, is this
I
the,
think it shows 9 spaces right there,
Yeah.
but that's not part of the construction plan.
So, yeah, so these are already constructed, these 9 spaces, and they're constructed as part of the contract with Starbucks.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, those are in place, or they will be in place
Here.
as the opening of Starbucks comes in. So that 9 spaces. They're not needed for the
Do you want
Starbucks.
to show them
but we're
where the
constructing them.
27 is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
can.
trying to get a good view at their back here. The 9 are like right up front here.
Mhm.
Additional lot.
So if you unshare, I can share mine.
Very good.
If I can figure that out. Is there?
Down at the bottom, it says share screen. It should pop up a bunch of icons and then you pick it and say share. You can't like double click it.
Yeah, I had it a minute ago, and then
It's childproof. My 14-year-old had to show me how to do it.
I know I might need my teenagers to show me. Yeah, so I do not have the ability to share my screen.
If you take your cursor and hover it down at the bottom edge of your screen, sometimes that menu on the bottom is it disappears and comes back up when you bring your cursor down. That's what killed me for a long time. Does that? I'm just.
We're getting to be pros at this.
Okay, I think. Let's see.
Hey, something's happening.
That's not it, but I'm getting there.
It's just a little slow, Derek, so don't, think it's not doing it. It just
Oh, okay.
might take a second for us to see it.
Does that parking rendering need to be opened?
Yeah, you gotta open up that email. There we go.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Can we all see that? Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll zoom in. It took me so long, I forgot the question, I think. But
to show where the future expanded area would
okay,
be.
so we're still planning on these 9 spaces are the spaces I was saying are being built under the Starbucks contract, and most likely they're in some kind of partially built, almost finalized, and they'll be finalized in the spring. But Starbucks has more than ample parking. We've always had an agreement to be allowed to park in the Walmart spaces. And when we rotated the Starbucks to have our patio facing this way, we have enough spaces per zoning for the Starbucks and the retail, but we anticipate that Starbucks patrons will be using the Walmart shared spaces. But we did keep the construction of the 9 spaces in this section of the site to be constructed under phase 2. And we anticipate that they will be utilized for the phase 3, the Chipotle and the future retail. But this sort of answers your question where this row of parking, yes, is going to be built. And then this large open area will remain loam and seeded. However, it is large enough for a double row of future parking, but that is not being permitted or contemplated at this time.
Yeah, I thought I remembered it being bigger.
Yeah, George, if I may, a couple of comments on this.
Mm-hmm.
The parking area that's being discussed right now, they're putting in the curbing, but the curbing was not complete. The contractor did not have in his contract anything beyond a straight section of curb that comes out toward that road that's in front of the proposed Chipotle's. You've still got that riprap stone that's right up against the edge of the road across from Chipotle's that I would hope is going to come out as a part of what they're doing now and remove it from where it was not supposed to be. The second thing that I wanted to note about Starbucks is right over next to the new parking that they put in at the front of the building, what I'll call the front of the building. It's the side opposite Toby Road. There is a fire hydrant that's within 6 inches of the curb. And when we were out there for a site visit the other day, the contractor agreed that he would turn the hydrant 180 degrees to get the steamer connection away from the curbstone, but it's still less than a foot away. And I want to know if there's any opportunity to relocate that.
What would you expect it to be, Charlie?
Well, there's a little bit of room there. There's some grass area that's between the curbing and a sidewalk. My recollection is that area is probably 6 feet wide. So if it was set back another couple of feet, it would give a little bit more clearance to anybody driving into that space. If they had not turned the hydrant around, they'd be slamming a door on the steamer connection every time they open a door. And the reason we had them turn it was because that the fire department would not be able to use it if there was a car parked in that space. But as it is, by turning it 180 degrees, at least you could get the steamer connection, which is the big cap on a hydrant, away from them. But it's still within 6 inches to a foot of the curb. So it'd be nice if that.
Out of curiosity, Derek, do you know what where it was located on the plan that was approved, just so we know whether or not it's consistent with what we contemplated or if it was an error? I'm getting a text from him that he got kicked off the call and is dialing back in. So I'll make note of that. And when Derek's back, we can ask for clarification on the plan. Obviously, if it is either not to code or is problematic from a health or safety perspective, we're certainly open to working with the town. And as you're administering oversight of construction going forward, these are continuing construction related issues that we've tried to work with you, and we certainly will continue to work with you on. Those are both good comments and not objectionable from our perspective. So,
but I would certainly hope that we could get a commitment on getting that riprap stone out of there, because it'll mean a gap where the curb is not connected to the rear of the new building that's going in. I just don't want to see it sit
only
there
because I'm not
languish until
involved
the
in
very
the
last thing.
construction side.
You have a commitment from me. I'm not specifically sure exactly what you're referring to, but if it's something that you guys aren't happy with, we're not going to leave it there.
Well, it was put in there at the initial stages of the Aspen Dental building, but it was never shown on the approved site plan. I don't know how it got changed to put there, but there was no reason why it should have been put there in the first place.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that it gets out of there and not just get left to the last minute after the contractors have left, and nobody's going to be responsible for the extra cost of removing it and putting the new curb in there.
We are fine with making that a condition to this approval if you want that assurance that way.
Well,
Not a
it's not
problem.
to me.
Whatever we need to do.
It's up to the planning board. I'm bringing it up to the planning board's attention because when we were out there making a site visit the other day, was one of the things that got brought up as a part of the site visit, because I know that you're looking to open Starbucks and there was some site issues that needed to be addressed at that time. And I had suggested to the representative from JJ Welch that they needed to put a cost estimate together for the work. But I want to be sure that somehow that riprap doesn't get overlooked and just left behind somewhere.
You have my assurance. We'll get it taken care of, even if it's not a requirement from the board for our approval.
And this is at the Starbucks building?
No, George, it's on that road that is, or the driveway that is right in back of the Aspen building, Aspen Dental building. And it's adjacent to where they're putting in that added parking right now. It's been there since day one.
I'll have to go by and see what you're talking about.
And Charlie, when you say the back of the building, so if I'm at Walmart, am I looking at the back of the building? I just want to make sure I'm.
Yes, that's correct, Richard.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we talked about this a long time ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Nothing's
And so,
happened.
So I think our developer team has heard this loud and clear, and we should probably just make a note of it in any approvals that we do for this site plan review modification.
Anything else?
Okay.
I am back on, by the way. Sorry about that.
Something happened in my
You
screen.
missed all the fun.
Yeah, I missed, it just ended just as I got back on, so you fill me in later.
Just the issue of riprap that has not been removed on the drive lane behind Aspen Dental, that I guess has been there since the outset of construction, and shouldn't have been, or at least needs to be removed. We've made a commitment to remove it, but I don't know if you have any more color as to why it's there and why it isn't come out yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was put in as a temporary condition. Maybe there was some confusion as to whether it was even warranted, and the contractor may have overreached in reading our plans, but
Guys, and girls, no matter what, it's getting removed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then the only other question while you were gone that relates to plans is location of a fire hydrant. I don't know, Charlie, if you want to specify exactly where that's within a foot of the roadway, but he had a conversation with the contractor on. I just asked if that was consistent with the plan that was previously approved or not.
Yeah, if it's in the same location where you had to relocate a light pole, there was a hydrant that was there.
Okay.
I think the hydrant's in the same spot that was shown on the original plan, but then you modified the Starbucks building and it changed the shape. We talked about changing driveways and everything, which you did. But that hydrant is in the same position it was before Starbucks was initiated. And right now it's within a foot or so of the curb line for the parking spaces that are now put in there.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about, so we'll take a look at that.
The contractor did agree, Derek, to rotate the hydrant 180 degrees to get the steamer connection away from the parking spaces so they could use it if they had to. But it's still within a foot or so of the curbing, and that's just too close.
Yes, I agree. We'll take a look at that, Charlie.
Thank you.
Board have any other comments or questions that?
This is Richard. I have no more comments or questions. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Here's the clam.
No, I'm all set.
Any actions to be taken?
Can we approve this tonight with without having the actual draft, or do we have the draft I saw? But can we, let me double check. Ken, there is a draft, I believe in the folder.
Yes, that's correct.
Can we, with the condition about the stone removal, can we approve conditionally upon that being added to that draft? Is
That would be fine.
Can I
That
take
would be
a
done.
video?
What you want to do though is first close the public hearing.
One other question, Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Sure.
What is the status of the request for the variance for the drive-up window with the ZBA?
I
Sure.
don't know.
Unfortunately, 2 Wednesdays ago, there were missing members of the ZBA, and so every new hearing was continued until this Wednesday. As you can make up a hearing by video or what have you once a hearing is open, but not on the first hearing. So we continued things over until Wednesday, and the vote of this board and the approval of this board would still be contingent on the ZBA acting favorably on the variance request. And the draft decision reflects that.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for item 2-21 SPR modification from Wareham Retail Management, 1 F Toby Road, map 87, lot 1.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, there's a hand up.
I'm sorry, I was looking through the conditions you had here.
This was just to close the public hearing, George.
Yeah, I was just trying to keep things moving. Is there a question?
There is. Nancy McHale. I have a question about the plantings, because we were just talking about them. Is there going to be consideration given for native plants as opposed to more of the invasive species that tend to be planted in shopping areas?
So this plan, our landscape architect's not on the call tonight. It's Mike Radner out of Dedham, Mass. And yeah, that's typically what he does. He coordinates with the town on any any species that are not, if there is such a thing. But there are no invasive species, and he's very considerate of water tolerant plants that do well in a retail environment. He puts a lot of thought into it.
But is there a consideration for native plants?
Yes, there is.
My name's Frank Mann with the Pine Barrens Alliance. Not to criticize, but in general, what people call natives are not native to this unique ecoregion. One of the things I put on the site, a new plant list we've had that's been developed by some really great botanists, and they are all specific to this ecoregion in this county. And as much as you can adhere to that, is a very big positive for biodiversity in this area, this unique, globally rare ecoregion. We're urging all planning boards and other boards across this county and ecoregion to try to adopt something like this, because in general, even though plants might be similar, if they're not native, they are a negative to the biodiversity. The plants and animals, especially things like butterflies, moths, and other creatures that are so dependent on spreading pollen and other things, can't eat these types of plants if they're not specifically native to this 10,000-year-old ecoregion. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you share that through Ken, we're happy to provide that to our landscape architect
I put it on
and
the
ask that they
chat.
give consideration to it.
I put a link on the chat that's, you can grab that link and go directly to that plant list.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else. Nope. No, don't do that. I'm just trying to get back to my screen here. You put up with me for a minute. There you are. There was a motion to close the public hearing, correct?
There
And
was,
second. And a second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Richard?
aye.
Mike Baptiste?
Aye.
Thanks. Mike King?
Aye.
And I also. Thank you. I don't know if you saw the draft decision in your email, or if you're able to look at it. If there's anything there you wish to add? Whoops.
Ken, do you feel comfortable that you know the wording to add to this to address the concern Charlie brought up about the stone?
Yes, I do. It's been discussed quite a bit.
Okay, good.
Rotation of the hydrant, right?
And rotation of the hydrant, or moving of the hydrant.
George, this is Richard. I have no problem with this decision with the two changes that Ken just outlined for us.
Well, this, the decision he's written do not reflect any conditions. I would say the conditions of the previous overall site plan still exist. If you want to add additional, whether those two items were an oversight or not consistent with the improved plans. If you wish to make, excuse me, if you wish to make those conditions part of this approval, that's fine.
That would be what I hope to do. Why can't I open that? Is the board ready to move forward and approve? I mean, if so, I'll make a motion. I have no more comments.
Just include the conditions you want to include, that's all.
So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan review modifications for Wareham Retail Management at 1 Seth F. Toby Road, map 87, lot 1, with using the draft decision that the Director of Planning has put into the Planning Board folder for this application, with 2 additional conditions, 1 being the relocation of the fire hydrant, and 2, the removal of the stone next to the parking lot.
That was a good motion.
Did I
Second.
do that? I've been working on it, Mike.
You did a good job.
I would just,
Not good enough.
Ken, should we make comment on the drive-up window and its approval? Or just-
This is contingent on the approval of by the zoning board of appeals of a drive-up window.
Ken, I'm trying to pick up your decision, and every time I do, the renderings of the Chipotle place pop up.
You're being photobombed.
Yeah.
That's what I get too.
Good, I thought it was just me.
Yeah, so I can't read it.
Can you bring it up, Ken, and share with us?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
Ken, the additional variance is at the very end of section 1, just pointing out. And it's a legal requirement.
And should there be a reference to the plan, Ken?
Yeah, we wanted to identify the latest plan.
Correct. I was just looking for that. I couldn't find it.
It's the beginning of section 3, where it defines the plans and the chronology.
Ah, okay, January revised through
January 21, 2021.
Were you able to share that, Ken? Or
Hey, you can't see it?
oh,
I
I
see
got
it.
it on my email. So
Good job.
oh, there you are. Any questions, anybody, or omissions?
You gonna survive, George?
I wonder.
I think my motion's still valid, George. We can probably move forward.
Well, I thought you guys were reading that, so I didn't. That's why I was giving you some time. Are you done?
I'm done.
Yep, I'm done.
With that, I will call for a vote. Let me get back to my meeting here. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Mike, okay, Mike King,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I. Thank you.
Good.
Where am I going here? There you are. I guess we're good then, correct?
I think we are done with that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we will work with you guys as well as look at the Pine Barrens plant recommendations.
Good,
Thank
thanks.
you very much.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Cool.
Thanks, Rod.
Good night.
Good scrub out there, nobody will be able to get in. Nature's barbed wire. Anyway, what do you got next, Ken?
Next on the agenda is zoning amendments. And I wanted to start with that there's been a change in the state law. A new Chapter 40A, the zoning statute, zoning enabling statute of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, included some, were included with some new changes that affect how the planning board acts. And it's one of the changes is that a simple majority for approving zoning amendments at town meeting is available for certain project types. In addition, there is a simple majority for special permits that meet certain requirements of a use type. And some other programs, the Chapter 40R program is modified as well. But the key changes is that for zoning bylaw amendments is that the simple majority is required, is all that's required at town meeting to approve multifamily housing or mixed-use developments that are as of right in eligible locations. And it allows for open space residential development as of right. That's a zoning amendment that would do that.
What do you mean when you say as, Ken? What is as of right? What does that mean?
That means no special permitting is required. You can go right to the building department and get your building permit and construct. It allows accessory dwelling units, either within the principal dwelling or within a detached structure that is as of right. And they have a definition of an accessory dwelling unit that is fairly specific. So there's additional information on what is being approved as of right. A zoning bylaw could be approved by a simple majority instead of a 2/3 vote if it includes a special permit for accessory dwelling units in a detached structure on the same lot. The simple majority is available to parking requirements being changed to reduce the parking required for residential or mixed-use development under a special permit. And the simple majority, instead of a 2/3, would be available to permits that permission to increase in permissible density of a population or intensity of a particular use in a proposed multifamily or mixed-use development that requires a special permit. So that's if you had a mixed-use development that requires a special permit, and if it includes multifamily housing, if there's an increase in the density as a result of the change of the bylaw, then that can be approved by simple majority. Changes in the dimensional standards such as lot coverage, floor area ratio, height, setbacks, minimum open space coverage, parking, building coverage, that would allow the construction of additional residential units would also be a bylaw that would be approved, could be approved by a simple majority. You get the gist of this is that the new state law is encouraging mixed use and residential development and allowing that it could be done by an easier vote of a town meeting. Also included is a transfer of development rights or natural resource protection zoning. And
So
smart
basi-
growth or starter home districts that are in accordance with section 3 of chapter 40R. All those that could be done by a simple majority. And as a result of my reading of this and the information I've received so far, it'll have to be discussed with the town moderator, but it could be that the special permit for increased density of population and intensity of uses in a multifamily or mixed use development could apply to the village redevelopment bylaw that has been proposed. And in which case, if the town moderator agrees, it would be a case where they could be passed with a simple majority at town meeting. I sent around the summary of the state law to the planning board members. I don't know if you got a chance to read it. If you had any questions, I probably couldn't answer them very well right now, but can follow through with a discussion with council as to the interpretation as needed.
I got a headache about 2 paragraphs in. It was pretty tough. But they've been talking about this for a long time, about relaxing the town meeting laws at the state level to encourage more housing development. That's, I guess, the way it's written, though, it seems I struggle on how we make a decision, and WV1R comes to mind. I mean, a lot of the things that you talked about are in that redevelopment proposal, but I don't know I don't know how to make that determination. If there's something in there that's not covered, does that disqualify it? Is a question that comes to mind.
Well, it sounds like they're looking to take all local approvals away from regular development like they have with 40B.
That's not the case, George. They're allowing the decision to be made. They're just making an easier time of it. So you don't need the super majority of 2/3 of town meeting or 4/5 of the 5-member board for special permits.
Now, accessory housing without any regard to density, or is that what I'm hearing?
That's right.
So you got a 5,000 square foot lot, you can start renting out your shed to.
No,
Not that that hasn't happened, but.
The accessory dwelling unit has a fairly specific set of criteria, and it's fairly substantial in size. It's a 900 square foot space that is required to meet the definition. It would be hard pressed to find a small lot that would handle the development on that space.
It's been done.
I'm sure we got builders in town that could do it, George.
What's that?
I'm sure we got builders in town that can accomplish that.
They couldn't do it unless town meeting said it was okay, though.
So Ken, what's next step here? I would imagine that the state, or I would hope the state's providing some resources for people like us and yourself to help us understand and navigate through this. Given that we've got a town meeting coming up quickly here, how do we get resolution on the village article or any other zoning article that changes? I don't think there is any right now. What's your plan?
The plan is to have a discussion with town council and town moderator and find out what they are going to recommend as an action to take on the zoning bylaws.
So can you come back to next planning board meeting and let us know how that goes?
Yeah, you'll be the first to be informed.
Thank you.
Ken, would the adoption of that bylaw require a simple majority of town meeting, or would it, because it's not in effect, require a 2/3 majority?
I don't know what you mean by not in effect. It is in effect now. State
Well,
law.
as far as the
was
state is
signed-
concerned, but the town has to adopt it, correct?
No, it doesn't. It's under chapter 40A, the enabling legislation.
But don't we have to make some sort of a reference to it in the zoning bylaw then?
No, we don't reference town meeting action in the zoning bylaw now, and we wouldn't with
No.
this either.
No, I'm not talking about that, but in terms of the vote, you say that the town meeting doesn't have to adopt it? Because it's already adopted?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, my question then was, what kind of a vote does it take of town meeting to get this effective in the town? Does it take a simple majority, or does it take a 2/3 because it's zoning related?
The accessory dwelling unit would be,
No, the whole thing, the whole thing.
the whole thing is already in the state law. The standard for a simple majority does not require an action by town meeting to allow that to occur. It's available in the state law, the enabling legislation that governs all land use in the state.
Then what is it going to town meeting for then?
If we take a bylaw to town meeting that meets one of the criteria or several of the criteria, then the town moderator has an option available to find it in conformance with the standards and to ask for a simple majority as to pass the zoning bylaw amendment.
Is there a description as to what this would do to the hospitality district?
That's something we'll have to explore. It has some elements that may make it fit, but I think there's enough question that it'll probably require some analysis before it's actually acted on either way.
Yeah, that's the question I have, Ken. If you look at the HRE article, it may hit a couple of the things. And what does that mean? It qualifies or not? Or does he have to hit 100% of them? Or do 100% of your changes have to fit in? I'm hoping you can get some clarity around that.
Yeah, we'll need this for the upcoming town meetings.
Yeah, Claire's got a lot of pressure on her all of a sudden on this one.
She always has a lot of pressure on her for town meeting.
Oh, I see she's listening. But she's muted. She won't talk to us.
Is the whole text available so that it could be downloaded, Ken?
Yeah, it is. You can find it under H5250.
I'm just wondering how it gets applied, how planning board members are going to be looking at it, what they're going to have to read through as a consultant, what I might have to look at and read through. I think Richard had a good idea that we ought to get somebody who maybe from the state that knows what they're talking about to come in and give us a little bit of a talking as to what it all implies and how this should take place. It's going to impact a lot of decisions, and unless all the information is there where we can put our hands on it, it's going to be pretty tough.
Mr. Buckland, just a comment that Mr. Swenson said he got a headache in the first two questions, first two paragraphs. I have a bigger headache. So, as well as many moderators in the state, this has been going around, a lot of questions being asked about it, and a lot of different answers. So it's very confusing. So we do have to reach out to council and sort through it before this upcoming town meeting with any of the zoning articles.
Well, good luck with that, Claire.
Who's bringing the wine after town meeting, huh?
Maybe we should have it before.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Whatever
But
your
it's
face,
been
George.
a very hot topic in the last few weeks with the Mass Moderators Association. I've actually reached out to a couple of state representatives, moderators that are writing legislation for the representatives, and they are confused as well. So it's not very clear. So it's going to take a while to sort through it. And then your board is going to have to come up with a report, I believe, for every article as to why you think it only takes a majority and not a 2/3 vote. And if there's a mix of things in an article, then that if any of them do require a 2/3 vote, then the whole thing requires a 2/3 vote. So it's going to be confusing, honestly.
I was very surprised, Claire, just a comment. I knew that the Baker-Polito administration had been advocating for this change to make zoning change. All I knew was make zoning changes go from super majority down to simple majority. But I was very surprised that it got enacted, and I'd heard no news about it. Were you blindsided by the enablement of it, or did you have a heads up?
Are you talking to me, Richard?
Yeah.
I've actually known about it maybe for about a month or so, because it got sent to all the moderators and everybody immediately had questions. And then Deborah Brown from Lexington, who is a legislative aide, texted all of us and said, let me explain some of this to you. And that even made it more confusing. So, I've read and reread and tried to reread again. I probably will be reaching out to the state to ask some questions because honestly, it is very confusing.
Geez, and to do it right, this is town meetings are going on across the state right now, or getting
Yes.
ready to.
Yes. Yep.
This is awful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got off track there, so.
Yeah, we also have to go through our zoning bylaw and find the conflicts too.
Yeah, it's
Anything
not going to be an easy job. But, I think your board and things that come before town meeting are going to bear some scrutiny and thought. It's not going to be an easy task to figure it all out.
Oh, it just sounds like more opportunities for decisions and to get challenged and debated and argued and, oh. Anything else on this, Ken?
Not on this. The next item, though, is that we have zoning amendments coming up for town meeting that we proposed back in last year. And what we're going to have to do is redo the public hearings that have been too long in the cooking for too long. So that what we do is we can consider all of the information that was previously submitted at the public hearings on the zoning articles. But we're going to have to, and this goes to the sign bylaw, the drive-through, the duplex definition, those articles that we had for spring last year, going to have to go through another public hearing. So I asked Sonia to publish a notice coming up so that the end of, or the beginning of next month, I believe, we'll be holding a hearing on the articles again. Sorry to have to repeat it one more time, but this is part of the process that we have to follow.
Can we do them all in one hearing?
Yes, we can.
27 times the charm, right?
And this is just because the time lapse between the original public hearing and the actual town meeting date has exceeded some window?
6 months, yes.
That's good. It'll refresh my memory.
Really? We got to get a manual back to help us with the duplex definition. What about the new articles that you call out here? MS4 floodplain, marijuana delivery solar farms.
Yeah, the new articles are the floodplain and the MS4 are requirements of the federal government for us to act locally. It's the adoption of the new floodplain maps and the inclusion of regulations governing phosphorus in the discharge of stormwater.
Do they require public hearings? The
Yeah,
MS4
they
and the
do.
floodplain?
All regulations and zoning regulations require public hearings.
Have they been scheduled?
Yes, they have.
Including the marijuana delivery one?
Marijuana delivery one I did not schedule as yet. That's a policy discussion I wanted to have with the Board of Selectmen first, as they're the ones that issue the host community agreements for marijuana uses. So I wanted to find out what the direction suggested by the Board of Selectmen would be. They can, if they want to have a bylaw considered, then they would, as in accordance with state law, pass it on to the planning board to hold the hearing and make the report to town meeting. The reason why I wanted to have a review of the delivery is that it's a new use that the state regulations allowed that would compete with our retail spaces. And as you know, we only have one retail operation going with the two more to come. So I want some thought as to how the delivery option is considered under the host community agreements that the selectmen issue for the town.
Regarding the solar farm one, we had talked last meeting about scheduling a public hearing on the 22nd for that article that was not adopted by the selectmen for the normal town meeting. It wouldn't surprise me at all that a citizen's petition is generated. And if that does happen, a public hearing still has to occur, I would expect. Is that true?
That's correct.
And did the notifications go out for the 3/22 date for that solar article that wasn't put on the town meeting?
No, they did not.
So do you know what the drop dead date is for a hearing, public hearing for any article going on the normal special town meeting? That goes.
Just as long as you have it before the town meeting and can generate a report and make that report to town meeting. That's the only time constraint that's included in the regulations.
I have no other questions at this time.
So what to repeat the process, what would happen is if a citizen's petition came in and the Board of Selectmen found that the signatures were correct on it and okayed it to and be included in the warrant, they would send it over to the planning board to hold the hearing and make the report to town meeting.
And notification has to happen 2 weeks prior to the public regarding that public hearing?
That's right.
So it sounds like we're going to be busy on the 22nd.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go through a lot of hearings to consider the zoning that we have in place. It's been collecting over the last year, and I'm concerned about having too much zoning in the town meeting and having them start to phase out, lose attention on the articles before them.
Yeah, is there any thinking of just doing financial items again? I don't know if we lost Claire. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry, I was distracted doing something else. What was your question?
Is there any thought about just doing financial items again this spring, or?
You're a little muffled, Richard.
That's true. You're so muffled, George, you sound like me.
Is there any thought to just doing financial issues like last town meeting, or so far you're looking at the full warrant?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to depend on where we are. We have spring break coming up. We're not totally out of the woods. We're in a much better place. The Springtown meeting, well, the one for April 10th is definitely outside on the football field. I have to give some thought to what do we do with the April 26th town meeting, and you know, it certainly would be warm weather. We could do that outside as well. I had a couple of other thoughts which I haven't mentioned to the Board of Selectmen yet. Now I'll be talking with Mr. Buckland and Derek and Peter tomorrow. I mean, I do have a thought, but you know, we've put so much off. At some point, we need to do the business of the town. It has to happen. So I want to get through the April 10th one, and planning for that. That's going to take an enormous amount of planning, you know, with an expectation of a very large crowd. So I'm trying to work my way through planning for that so it goes off smoothly and we don't have absolute chaos. And then I'll give some more thought to the April 26th meeting. If it's going to be outside, I may do a declaration and just move it to that Saturday. You know, I don't know if we can get into the school, if we're going to have 2 or 3 nights of a town meeting. I have to think about the students being back in school and us being in there. And so in the next couple of days, I've got to really put my thoughts together and decide what to do with that one. But, you know, we will be in warmer weather. We could do it outside. We could do it in a place where we could have a lot of room and be a lot safer. And hopefully by then people will have had their shots. So right now, you know, between the actually 3 town meetings, because there's a special within the annual, I really have to put my nose to the grindstone here in the next couple of days and figure it all out.
Just for your information, we've been told that the school's not opening up to any outside activity.
Yeah, so likely, I mean, I have a thought that we could still do something and do it outside for the annual. So like I say, you know, by this weekend, I should have worked through it. Takes a lot of planning. It's not easy. Takes a lot of planning.
All right. Anything else?
George, if I can, just as a reminder, any article that deals with stormwater like that MS4, that could have implications, as I mentioned before, on the zoning bylaw with respect to how we treat stormwater. So just adopting MS4 may not be the end of it. There may be some changes in the zoning bylaw that'll have to take place because of it. So just don't let that slide. Somebody ought to take a look at it.
Sounds like that if we don't do something with it, they're going to jam it down our throat anyway.
Well, it's already a matter of federal law, so it's an adopting procedure as far as that's concerned, but it does have implications for what your zoning bylaw says.
Yeah.
Charlie, do you think that, how do I say this? I don't know that I'm smart enough to go through that MS4 legislation and make and highlight areas in our zoning bylaws that need to be updated to reflect those changes. In my mind, I look to town council and Mr. Buckland to lead that effort for me. And I'd like to hear comments, because I don't think you want me trying to do that. Maybe I need to get smarter or something, but anyone have any comments on how we should be going about doing exactly what Charlie just outlined?
Well, one of the things we can do is actually set this up as a separate regulation so that it controls regardless of what's in the zoning bylaws. There's several ways we could approach it to make sure that it covers and is consistent throughout the bylaws and the regulations. I think that there's only a couple areas in the zoning bylaws where it deals with stormwater and the impacts of the water quality. And I think a search, a scan through the zoning bylaw would reveal where those changes have to be made.
So Ken, are you looking to anyone on this board to lead that effort, or is that something that you think that you would do?
I expected it to be on my shoulders to accomplish.
Okay, let us know if there's expectations on us, because in a situation like this, to be honest with you, I lean toward the experts, and the experts aren't me.
That's all right. You have some good points too, Richard.
Okay.
Where are we at, Ken? What's that?
That's all I have on the zoning articles.
Any other comments or questions or?
I think we're done, George.
Good of the order? Sounds like we're done.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Good motion. I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Mike King?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Mike Baptiste?
Just getting into this. Aye.
And aye. Good night, all.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.